AI, it seems like it's everywhere,
Yeah.
changing everything we know.
Yeah, it really does feel like that.
And today we're diving deep into how it's impacting graphic designers and their work with a little help from ChatGPT.
Yeah, it's changing things in ways you might not expect.
And it's more than just asking for like a cool font or something like that.
Right. When people think of AI, a lot of times they're thinking about, oh, is it going to replace jobs? But with design, what we're seeing is it's changing how the work gets done and maybe even what it means to be a designer.
And that's what caught my eye with this article we're going to be looking at today.
Mm.
The article is called "The Secret ChatGPT Trick Graphic Designers Don't Want You to Know." Now, it's originally written in Portuguese.
Okay.
Don't worry, though. We've got you covered. We'll break it all down.
Yeah.
So this was published just a few days ago, February 20, 2025.
Okay.
And it was written by Estes Jr., who's a design influencer.
Cool.
And you can find him on Instagram at Estes Jr. if you want to check out his work after the show.
Nice. Yeah, and that title, it really does kind of make you feel like you're getting some kind of secret weapon or an edge, right? Like you're about to learn something that nobody else knows.
Yeah, totally. And even if you're not a designer yourself, this deep dive can give you insights into how AI can really boost your own creative process, whatever you do.
For sure. It's like we're used to AI for stuff like, Netflix recommendations, right? Or filtering what we see online. But now with these tools, it's like it's becoming a creative partner.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. The article really jumps right in, and it says that designers are using ChatGPT for way more than just brainstorming ideas.
Interesting.
They're actually using it to refine their project briefs, get suggestions for color palettes even, and then automate some of those more boring parts of the job.
It's interesting because it's not just about speed, though, right? Which is what a lot of people focus on. Because, yeah, a designer can ask ChatGPT to make 20 variations of a logo, but it's really how that changes how they work with the client, Because now instead of presenting just one idea and crossing your fingers that they like it, you have more options and you can actually have a conversation about what's working and what's not working.
Oh, that's a good point. So it almost takes the pressure off that initial blank page fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Both for the designer and the client, because you can see more possibilities than you might have thought of initially. The article gives some examples like rebranding a coffee shop with the help of ChatGPT,
Okay.
or coming up with different concepts for a music festival poster.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and so instead of spending, hours sketching or browsing online for inspiration,
Yeah.
you can kind of get these targeted ideas way faster.
And that allows you to focus on the more important stuff, like what feeling are we going for? What elements really represent this brand? Those are the kinds of questions you have time for when you're not spending hours on the initial ideation phase.
So it's not even just about being faster. It's about having more to work with and being able to get to those better ideas
Right.
faster.
I love that.
I love that. And speaking of starting strong, the article really emphasizes how crucial it is to have a really well-defined brief when you're starting a project.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who's worked on any kind of creative project knows that if you have a brief that's kind of vague or confusing,
It's a disaster.
it is a disaster. You end up with tons of revisions and the clients get frustrated and it's just a mess.
We've all been there, right? But what I think is so interesting here is that ChatGPT can actually help fix that communication breakdown.
Oh, interesting.
Designers are using it to create super detailed briefs that outline everything about the project. Like they gave examples like a perfume launch or an e-commerce banner, which are things that I think a lot of people can relate to, even if they're not designers themselves.
Yeah. So instead of just relying on emails or phone calls that can be misinterpreted, you have this document that's really clear and spells it all out.
Saves so much time and back and forth.
It does. And it even kind of changes the designer's role, right? Because instead of just being told what to make, they can kind of be more of a strategic consultant from the beginning.
Yeah, like you're helping the client really figure out what they want in the first place.
I hadn't even thought about that, but that makes total sense. So we've talked about getting ideas flowing, crafting that super strong brief. What else are designers doing with ChatGPT?
Well, the thing that really stood out to me was how they're using it to generate different variations of a design. So it's kind of like having this superpower assistant,
Right.
And it can tweak colors, the typography, the layout, all those things that would take forever if you were doing it manually. So imagine you need a color palette that appeals to a younger audience. Or you need to take a retro design and make it feel more modern. ChatGPT can help with all that.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the article even mentions using it to help modernize a design and asking things like, how would you make this logo feel more fresh for today's market?
Yeah, it's like getting instant feedback, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just from a person, it's from this AI that has looked at tons and tons of data.
Yeah, it knows what's out there.
Yeah,
So it's not just speed, it's really about seeing all these possibilities that you maybe wouldn't have thought of on your own.
which leads to better work, hopefully, right? More creative, a more interesting final product.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot so far, and it's clear that ChatGPT is having a huge impact. But before we move on, I want to talk about this other thing the article mentioned, time-saving automation.
Yeah.
Because even the most creative jobs still have those kind of boring, repetitive tasks that nobody really wants to do.
Absolutely, it's true. And that's where I think AI can really help us.
Right.
So designers are using ChatGPT to write social media captions, ad copy, even suggest what hashtags to use. It's like having, an assistant who never gets tired and doesn't mind doing the boring stuff.
Yes.
Yep.
Which frees you up to focus on the stuff you actually like doing.
Oh, sure.
And the article even gives specific prompts, like asking ChatGPT to help write captions for an Instagram carousel about minimalism,
Oh, interesting.
or to come up with a tagline for an online illustration course.
It's about working smarter, not harder. Right. And when things move as fast as they do in the design world, that can make all the difference.
Totally. But it also makes you wonder, though, if AI is going to be doing more of this grunt work, what does that mean for designers in the future? Like, what's their role going to be?
Yeah, that's a big question, and something we'll definitely keep unpacking as we go deeper into this topic.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this all plays out.
It makes you wonder, what will AI take over and what will always be human,
Yeah.
Because this article even mentions how designers are using ChatGPT to get help with things like color palettes.
Wait, really? So it's not even just words. Like, ChatGPT can understand visual stuff, too.
Yeah. Like, let's say you're working on branding something and you want a color palette that feels really sophisticated and trustworthy. You can actually ask ChatGPT and it'll look at tons of designs and come up with suggestions, stuff you maybe wouldn't have even thought of.
Oh, wow. It's like having this virtual color expert.
Right.
And I bet that could be helpful for way more than just graphic designers.
Oh, for sure. Like interior design, fashion, even like building websites, anything where color matters, which is like almost everything.
Yeah. It almost makes you wonder if this could make good design more accessible, you know? Like, you don't have to be an expert to get those really polished results.
Yeah, that's a great point. It could really level the playing field for smaller businesses or people who can't afford a whole design team. They can still make stuff that looks good and gets the job done.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we've talked about color, but what about, like, the whole way a design is laid out? Can ChatGPT help with that too?
It can. The article mentions how designers are using it to get feedback on visual hierarchy.
Visual hierarchy.
Yeah, so that's like how things are arranged on a page. So your eye goes where it's supposed to and the important info stands out. It can be pretty complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no expert, but I know when something just looks cluttered and messy. Is that what ChatGPT would help with?
Totally. Like it can look at your design and be like, hey, maybe move this over here. This needs more breathing room, or make this bigger so people see it right away. It's like having another set of eyes, but ones that have seen like a zillion good designs.
Okay, now that's something I could use even for my stuff. Like presentations at work, knowing if I have too much text on a slide or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Right. Or think about websites. There are so many things that go into making a website easy to use, where the buttons are, how much space there is, the whole navigation. ChatGPT could look at all that and give you feedback.
It makes you realize how AI is changing how we even think about being creative. It's not replacing our ideas, but it can help us so much, even avoid those mistakes we all make.
Totally. And it can even help us push our creativity further, Like the article talks about how designers are using ChatGPT to explore different typography pairings.
Oh yeah, like how some fonts just look so good together and others are just a disaster.
Right. And ChatGPT can actually analyze the way fonts look and feel and suggest pairings that create a certain mood or, match a brand's personality.
Oh, that's cool. Like if you're doing a whole branding project and you need to make sure the fonts feel just right.
Exactly. It's like, again, the designer becomes more of a strategist, using the AI to explore a wider range of options and make those smarter decisions.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of options, that reminds me of the whole thing about generating variations. Like the article really emphasized how ChatGPT can help designers make tons of versions of a design super easily.
It's like having a whole design team on call, you know? Imagine you can show your client 10 different logo concepts, each one with a different vibe. It's a much better way to start a conversation and figure out what they really want.
And probably saves a ton of time in the long run, right? Instead of all that back and forth with revisions, you can narrow it down from the start.
Exactly. And it also lets designers be more experimental. They can try out all kinds of ideas without worrying about wasting time or, getting stuck in a rut.
It's like AI is taking care of all that boring stuff, so you can focus on the big picture and actually be creative.
That's a great way to put it. It's not about replacing us, it's about AI making us better.
So we've talked about how ChatGPT is impacting the visual side of design, but what about all that other stuff? The writing, the marketing, all that.
Yeah, that's actually a huge area where ChatGPT is making a difference too.
Mhm.
Designers are using it to write those social media captions, make ads that people actually want to read, even come up with catchy taglines, the stuff that sticks in your head.
So they don't even need to hire a copywriter anymore.
Not necessarily, but they can use ChatGPT to get better at writing themselves or just get a head start on a project. Like the article had these examples of prompts, like asking it to write Instagram captions for a new product launch
Okay.
or come up with a tagline for a whole marketing campaign.
So again, it's not necessarily taking away jobs, it's giving people new tools to do their jobs better.
Exactly. It's all about helping people do their best work, whether they're designers, writers, whatever.
Okay, so we've seen how designers are using ChatGPT for everything. Brainstorming, color palettes, even writing. It's like, is there anything it can't do? But I'm curious, are there any downsides? Like, is it risky to rely on AI this much when you're being creative?
That is a great question, and it's something we all need to think about as AI gets more and more integrated into everything. One thing that comes to mind is homogenization.
Homogenization. What's that?
Well, if everyone's using the same AI tools to come up with ideas, there's a chance that everything starts to look and feel the same, Like, we could lose that unique perspective and individuality that makes creative work so interesting.
Oh, yeah. Like if everyone used the same filter on Instagram, eventually it would all just be boring.
Right. We don't want that to happen with design or anything creative. So it's really important that people use these tools in smart ways and always think for themselves.
Yeah, we don't want to lose the human touch.
Yeah.
So how do you see the role of the designer changing with all this AI stuff happening?
I think their role is actually going to get even more important, but it's going to be different. Like, they're not just going to be really good at making things. They're going to have to be more strategic, know how to collaborate, and how to use all this AI stuff to their advantage.
So not replaced, but kind of evolving into a whole new kind of creative professional.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really interesting time to be in design, and I think we're only just starting to see what AI can do.
It really does feel like a whole new era. It really does feel like we're kind of on this edge of a whole new era for design.
Yeah, it's exciting, but I think the article also points out how some designers are nervous about it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, is AI going to take my job?
Right. Or is it going to make me better at my job?
Or both, maybe. Who knows?
Probably a little bit of both, I think. And that's where you have to adapt, right? The designers who do really well are going to be the ones who learn how to use these tools, figure out how to make them work for them. Like, it's kind of how photography changed. You had to get good at digital or you got left behind.
Right, exactly. And it goes back to what we were saying before about how the designer's job is changing.
Yeah.
It's less about just, being super technical and more about strategy, being able to use AI to get what you want.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know, those sci-fi movies where they're conducting a robot orchestra or something.
Yeah.
Except the robots are making fonts and color palettes.
I love that. But the human is still the one in charge, right? They're setting the mood, making sure it all comes together.
Exactly. So even if the AI can make a website or like design a whole logo, it's still the human who needs to make sure it makes sense for the audience, that it's saying the right thing.
Totally. That takes understanding people, psychology, marketing, even intuition, things that AI hasn't quite figured out yet.
Well, maybe someday, but not today. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how this is impacting graphic designers, but what about everyone else? Like, what can our listeners take away from all this, even if they don't do design work?
Well, the biggest thing is that AI is changing how we think about creativity, period. Whether you write or make music or you're an entrepreneur, even just doing creative stuff for fun, these tools can change the game.
So it's not just about logos or whatever. It's about everyone being able to unlock that creativity a little bit more.
Yeah. It's like you get stuck writing an intro to a blog post, boom, ask ChatGPT. Planning a party, need a theme, AI can help with that too.
So it's a partner, not a replacement.
Exactly. And that's something to get excited about, right? It's like having a whole new set of tools for whatever you want to make.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into ChatGPT and graphic design, we want to challenge you, our listeners. Don't be afraid to experiment. Try these tools out. See what happens. You might surprise yourself.
You never know. Maybe you'll discover your own secret ChatGPT trick.
Yeah, we can't wait to see what you come up with.
Big thanks to Steves Jr. for that awesome article.
Yes. And if you want to learn more about AI in design, you can find him on Instagram at @StevesJr. Go check it out.
And to everyone listening, keep exploring, keep creating, and we'll catch you